In 1929, the middle-class fathers of America all made this same mistake. That single error ended lives that had taken decades to build in just one day. And today, we are making almost the exact same choices. Just before the most lavish party in human history came to an end, Arthur, a middle-class father in New York, was spending a peaceful evening in his living room, swirling a glass of whiskey. He wasn't a villain, nor was he a foolish gambler. He was a regular citizen, gracefully sailing on the wave of debt permitted by his era. Across a century, Arthur's living room transforms into ours, where we check stock apps on our smartphones, believing in the perpetual upward trend as if it were a religion. History asks us, are you certain you are any different from Arthur? The 1920s was the era when mass manipulation was established as a science. Arthur's study was cluttered with magazines and flyers. Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, gaslit fathers like Arthur into believing that consumption was synonymous with success. Your car defines your success, they said. To not own this refrigerator is to neglect your family's health. One evening, his wife, Elena, came out after tidying the children's room and asked, "Honey, can we move to that larger house across the way next year? I want to give the kids their own rooms." Arthur nodded with absolute confidence. He believed he was making independent choices as a provider and an investor. But his choices were already pre-designed. For the great machine of capitalism to run at peak efficiency, parts, like Arthur, had to become greedy, and even his love for his family was weaponized as fuel for debt. In the dead of night, Arthur would secretly open a small ledger in his study. The numbers inside told a truth far different from his seemingly glamorous middle-class life. 90% of Arthur's assets were tied up in his brokerage account. After paying off his monthly installments, only $70 of his salary remained. He was walking a financial tightrope where a single month of stalled cash flow would lead to collapse. Yet, watching his paper wealth grow every day, he believed he was rich. It was the same seed of tragedy we see today. People mistaking unrealized gains in crypto or stocks for actual money and increasing their spending accordingly. The poisoned chalice Arthur eventually drank from was margin trading. The brokerages whispered, "With just $10 of your money, you can buy a $100 dream." They offered to lend the remaining $90. In truth, Arthur's choice wasn't reckless by the standards of the time. In fact, those who didn't make that choice were treated as fools. But where did that $90 Arthur borrowed come from? At the time, all of America's capital was flowing back to New York in search of the high interest rates of Wall Street. The money Arthur borrowed might have been the hard-earned savings of a rural farmer meant for repairing equipment. The structure of collective liability, where a market crash incinerates the savings of even those who never touched a stock, was silently completed this way. Arthur believed the optimistic headlines of the morning paper as if they were the gospel. The media of the day, quoting government officials and economists, reported daily that the fundamental business of the country is on a sound and prosperous basis. They were a massive choir assembled to lull the public's fears. Arthur gladly added his voice to that choir, but the hymn was actually a march toward a cliff. And by the time Arthur realized it, there was no room left to even turn around. While the elites at the top of the information chain were already escaping through the back door, Arthur was clipping editorials, clinging to the illusion that if we just hold on a little longer, everyone will be rich. Arthur's living room was a showroom of prosperity. The Edison radio, bought on credit, played cheerful swing jazz. To Arthur, it was the melody of abundance. But in the warehouses of the real economy, unsold inventory was piling up like mountains. Consumption had bottomed out, but production wouldn't stop. Arthur ignored the clear signs of a downturn. This was normalcy bias, the human instinct to see only what one wants to see in the face of a crisis. The current just before a waterfall always feels the smoothest. On the night of October 23rd, 1929, Arthur went to bed with a satisfied smile. The cheerful jazz from his radio began to warp and slow down unnaturally until it stopped. In that silence, the ticker tape machine, which had sounded like the rhythmic copying of money all day, fell quiet after leaving a few ominous ticks. It was the sound of the era's heart stopping. But Arthur, intoxicated by his dreams, did not hear it. He listened to the breathing of his sleeping children and dreamed of that larger house. But the blueprints for that home were already being tossed into the fire. The lights of the most brilliant party in history flickered out, and the cold dawn air began to shroud Wall Street. Arthur's $100 dream was already being crushed under the weight of a $90 debt. And 100 years later, we are walking the same path as Arthur, perhaps waiting for the exact same morning. Part 1 ends here. Arthur's tragedy wasn't that he was exceptionally foolish. It was that he responded most faithfully to the madness of his time and the system of debt designed by that madness. The clock moves toward 10 a.m. on October 24th. The cold ring of the margin call starts as the opening bell chimes. The ticker tape falls 4 hours behind, throwing Arthur into a darkness where he doesn't even know how much he has lost. We follow the heartbreaking scene as the appliances Arthur bought for his family are seized one by one, and the desperate chaos of the bank run as neighbors trample each other to reach their savings. Thank you for watching.